Welcome to The Critique. Today we're looking at a video commentary script that draws a parallel between the biblical story of Ishmael and Isaac and modern geopolitical conflicts over Israel.
This is a heavy one. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's just jump right in. To start, let's talk about the main argument, the engine of the whole piece. The author argues that using things like international law or democracy to defend Israel is a defensive trap.
Right.
And instead, the only real defense is asserting a divine mission, similar to how God affirmed Isaac's legitimacy against, the scoff. It's a really bold take.
It is bold, yeah. But the problem is by relying only on a theological argument, you create this closed loop that's almost guaranteed to alienate the very audience you're trying to reach.
Okay, can I push back on that a little bit?
Sure, go for it.
I think the idea is that these secular frameworks are what they call legitimizing rubbish. So by even engaging with them, you're already sort of losing because you're playing their game. Isn't there some merit to that?
Oh, there's absolute merit to the conviction. I don't doubt the passion. But here's the weakness. It assumes a shared premise. The script says it's trying to reach scoffers or people who are confused.
Right.
But if you just dismiss international law or history as irrelevant, you've just removed the only common ground you have to talk to a secular opponent.
So it's basically a language barrier.
Exactly. If I'm a scoffer, I don't accept the Torah as a literal historical document, and you tell me I'm right because God gave this to me, well, that's not a winning argument for me.
Yeah, it's a conversation stopper.
It is. It just stops the conversation cold.
Okay, so I get the problem. It's a sermon for the choir, not a piece of persuasion. But the author obviously doesn't want to water down their message. How do you keep that theological core without, losing the room?
Well, the improvement, I think, is to reframe that divine right. It shouldn't be the external argument you make to the world. It should be the internal source of confidence for the speaker.
That sounds like a subtle shift. What do you mean by that?
I mean, you can still absolutely believe the covenant is the ultimate truth. We're not saying take God out of the script.
Okay, so what would that actually sound script?
Okay, so a concrete example. Right now, the script says something like, don't justify ourselves via international law, which is, it's dismissive.
Right.
A better way to phrase it would be something like, look, international law supports our case, and history backs it up. But our stamina, our ability to endure all this, that comes from our divine covenant.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, that's much stronger.
You see the difference? You're not throwing out the secular tools. You're acknowledging them. You're saying we have the law on our side, but you're prioritizing the spiritual fuel. It becomes the law is why we're right, but the covenant is why we're still here.
So you get this dual-layered argument. It satisfies the religious listener, but doesn't sound totally irrational to a secular one.
Exactly. It turns the argument from a demand, you have to believe my God, into a psychological explanation. This is why we are so unshakable. That's a huge shift.
I like that a lot. Okay, let's move on to the structure. The whole piece is built on this analysis of a verse in Genesis 25:19.
The exegesis.
Right. It notes the redundancy in Abraham begot Isaac and explains it's there to counter these rumors that some other king, Abimelech, was Isaac's real father.
Yeah, and the narrative path from that verse to the modern-day takeaway is it's just cluttered. It really dilutes the power of the central metaphor.
Cluttered is a nice way to put it. I mean, I was reading that middle section and we get so deep in the weeds. Sarah, Hagar, the visit to the king, a dream God sent him.
All of it.
It felt more like a history lesson than a political commentary.
It's the classic curse of knowledge. You can tell the author has done all this research, and it's fascinating to them, so they share every single detail.
Right.
But the listeners here for the so what moment. They want the link to anti-Zionism today, and the script makes them wait, and by the time you get there, all the tension is just gone.
Okay, but, don't you need all that detail to prove the parallel even exists? If you tut it, does the argument fall apart?
Not if you do it smartly. The suggestion is just to tighten the focus, map the biblical elements directly to their modern counterparts way earlier.
So less summary, more synthesis.
Exactly. So for example, just streamline that whole Abimelech story. The listener doesn't need to know about the dream or the lie Abraham told. The only thing that matters for this argument is the accusation.
The accusation of illegitimacy.
That's it. Just cut all the rest. Jump straight to rumors are swirling that Isaac wasn't Abraham's son, but the son of a foreign king. Boom. And then, right there, you make the A-B comparison.
What would that A-B look like?
You could write something like, just as Ishmael claimed Isaac was biologically illegitimate, the son of Abimelech, modern critics claim Israel is historically illegitimate, a colonialist project. You lock them together right at the start.
That makes the whole analysis feel much more urgent, less academic.
Right? It stops being, here's what happened 4,000 years ago, and becomes, here's what's happening now, and you can see it reflected in the past.
I see.
And there's one more thing here. The script mentions that God made Isaac look exactly like Abraham. This visual proof.
Yeah, I remember that detail, that Isaac was a carbon copy.
It's a great detail, but it's just left hanging. In a script like this, every detail has to pull its weight. So you need to connect it explicitly to the call to action.
How so?
So instead of just saying, we should look like Abraham, make it concrete. God gave Isaac the face of Abraham to silence the gossip. Today, we must wear the moral clarity of Abraham to silence the modern doubts. It turns a detail into a weapon.
I like that. That's a beautiful way to tie the visual to the behavioral. Okay, let's pivot to tone. This is maybe the trickiest part of the whole thing.
It often is.
The script spends a lot of time profiling the opposition, using Ishmael as the archetype. It describes them as being driven by resentment, jealousy, even throwing a tantrum.
And framing the opposition purely as emotional and irrational like that, it risks oversimplifying the conflict, and it really misses an opportunity for a much deeper theological point.
Well, let me play devil's advocate again. The author uses phrases like parenting a child having a tantrum. I mean, if you believe the critics are acting irrationally, screaming slogans, isn't tantrum kind of an accurate word? Why sugarcoat it?
It might feel accurate in the moment to the author's frustration, but it's totally fatal to the author's goal.
How so?
Because it's dismissive. Labeling it all as a tantrum that needs parenting shifts the tone from authoritative to just arrogant. And here's the real kicker. It completely contradicts the beautiful point the author tries to make at the very end.
The part about reconciliation?
Yes! The script ends with this idea of Ishmael's repentance, future friendship, this dual destiny. But you can't treat someone like a toddler and then expect them to become your respected partner. The two ideas cancel each other out.
That's a really sharp point. The diagnosis, they're just children, undermines the cure, we'll be partners.
Exactly. So the suggestion is to bring that concept of dual destiny in much earlier. Use it to soften the us versus them feel and make the whole piece tonally consistent.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you keep the firmness the author wants, but lose the condescension?
I'd bring that Rabbi Sachs quote, "Chosen does not mean someone else is rejected," right up to the front. Frame the whole conflict not as truth versus lies or adult versus child, but as specific mission versus universal mission.
That elevates the whole conversation.
It does. And instead of just saying they're having a tantrum, you could, acknowledge the tragedy of Ishmael's position. He feels displaced. That's a real pain. If you acknowledge that pain, the author's call for firmness starts to sound like tough love, not arrogance.
So it's less stop crying and more I understand you're hurt, but this is my role.
Yes. Ideally, you could say something like, we must stand firm, not to defeat them, but to help them accept their own unique destiny, just as Ishmael eventually did. That changes the whole goal of the commentary.
I really like that. It also aligns perfectly with what you said before about looking like Abraham. Abraham was known for kindness, not just being stubborn.
Precisely. The argument becomes about holding your ground not to humiliate the other side, but to help them reach a moment of recognition so you can become partners. It turns a political attack into a theological invitation.
Okay, last point. The end of the script. The author pivots from this whole Ishmael-Isaac conflict to a promotion for a documentary about the Jewish view of the afterlife.
And yeah, the transition feels abrupt. It's thematically disconnected and pretty jarring for the listener.
Jarring is a good word for it. I actually had to reread the page. We go from land rights and geopolitics straight to the resurrection of the dead.
It's that classic YouTuber segue problem, right? You're watching a deep video about, I don't know, the fall of Rome, and suddenly and that's why you need a VPN.
Yeah.
It just kills the mood. It tells the listener the intellectual part is over, and now the commercial begins.
Right. So how do we bridge that gap? Geopolitics and metaphysics seem like total opposites.
They seem like it, but I don't think they are. The suggestion is to create a thematic bridge, link the purpose of history, which is the whole Ishmael section, with the purpose of life, which is the afterlife section.
That sounds a bit abstract. How do you make that concrete in the script?
Well, you link them with the idea of bringing heaven down to earth. The whole Ishmael argument is about a physical presence in the land, right? That the divine mission has to be lived out on earth.
Okay, yeah. And the afterlife part argues that Judaism is about sanctifying this life, not escaping.
Exactly. That's the connection. The author could say something like, just as we fight for our place on this physical land, because our mission is here, not just in the heavens, Judaism teaches that the soul's ultimate goal isn't escaping reality,
but elevating it.
Oh, that's brilliant. It makes the documentary sound like the philosophical foundation for the political argument.
And you could even use the resurrection concept itself. The script talks about the stamina of the Jewish people. You could say, our history is a story of national resurrection. To understand the spiritual depth behind this refusal to disappear, you need to understand the Jewish view of the afterlife.
That's a perfect flow. It makes the plug feel essential. Like, if you found the political part interesting, you need the metaphysical context to truly get it.
Which is the best kind of marketing. It adds value.
Okay, this has been a lot. Let's do a quick recap of the roadmap for the author.
Sure. First, the big one. Argumentative scope. Broaden the base beyond just theology. Use divine right to explain your internal stamina, not to shut down the debate.
Second, structure. Cut the long history lesson. Make the path from the biblical verse to the modern argument a highway, not a scenic route.
Third, and this is the big one for the feel of it, tone. Move away from the tantrum analogy, nuance the opponent. Bring that dual destiny idea forward to turn it from a fight into an invitation.
And finally, the transition. Glue the ending to the main body by linking the theme, the idea of sanctifying the physical world.
Exactly. It just turns a collection of interesting ideas into a single, powerful story.
To the author, this is a really powerful core concept, the parallel between the biblical scoffers and modern delegitimization. It's a very original angle.
I agree. The raw material is excellent. It just needs some shaping.
By refining these few things, this piece could really go from being a sermon for believers to a truly persuasive argument for a skeptic.
I would love to see a second draft of this. I really want to see if the author can pull off that tonal shift, turning the scoffer from an enemy into a potential partner. That's tough, but if it lands, it's incredibly powerful.
So we invite you to rework the script with these suggestions, and please send it in again. We'd love to see where it goes. That's it for this critique. Keep writing, and we'll see you next time.